But what if we have challenges like inagaw yung boyfriend mo?
Grabe naman yung challenge na yun.
When you're single and you're older, you think there's something wrong with you and you feel so insecure. How can you give love to others when you're so focused on yourself?
People will forget about what you say, but they will
Yes.
never forget how you make them feel.
And you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving also. If God says, no, that is not my plan for you, wali.
Wala talaga. Wala tayong magagawa doon. Welcome to Adulting with Joyce Pring. Watch the full video of this episode on my channel, www.youtube.com/JoycePringTV. And if you want to level up your adulting game, check out joycepring.com/collections for my digital products and courses. What's up, you guys? So welcome to another episode of Adulting with Joyce Pring. Because it is Love Month, we are bringing to you a love episode. What does the Bible say about the definition of love, and how does that look like in our day-to-day relationships, in our work, in our love life? Ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng love as defined by the Bible? We are being joined by Miss Binky Tan, and we had a great conversation that I'm sure you guys will enjoy. Miss Binky, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to me.
It's so funny because you guys don't know, pero bago pa mag-roll yung cameras, maybe we'll include some of the conversations we've been talking already,
Yeah.
talk about your own journey. But really, yung topic natin for today is about love.
Yes,
It's
love,
all
love.
about love because it's the love
Love
month, diba? But of course, we want to be biblical in our definition of love. So we want to talk about 1 Corinthians 13.
Yes.
How does that passage define love? And why do you think yun yung sinabi ni Paul about love?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Joyce.
Hi.
Okay. It's an important verse to define love, diba? But if you notice, it started with the verse, if I can speak the tongues of man, but do not love. So love is very important. Why? Because God is love. And He described in that verse what love is. Love is kind, love is not jealous, love is patient. And the reason why it's important, and it connects us with our relationship with the Lord, because we can never love that way apart from Jesus. So it is an important verse. And honestly, it's a go-to verse when we are in any relationships, whether friendship, boss or subordinate, husband and wife, children and their parents.
Yeah.
So
Can you tell me more about, I'm sure you've experienced this in your own life, right?
yeah.
Because as Christians, I think one of the most important experiences that we constantly have is experiencing the love of God in our lives. And as you've mentioned, iba-iba yung channels of that love, right? So could you tell us more about maybe your own experience in experiencing and feeling the love of God in your life?
You know, it is the driving fuel. It's what keeps me going when I think about the love of God. And it's only, for me, it's the reason why I think there's nothing good in me except knowing that He loves me, and that's the reason why I want to obey Him and live for Him, diba? So in a practical maybe example is when it's maybe in friendships, because all of us have that kind of relationship, diba? It is important to know God's love because by nature, we are selfish.
Yeah.
In any relationship, even if we're in love, kunyari, in a friendship, we're happy in a friendship, especially if our friend is also parang good to us, diba? But what if we have challenges like inagaw yung boyfriend mo?
Grabe naman yung challenge na yun.
Oo nga, parang wala akong maisip na ibang ang hirap. So, imagine mo.
Alam ko, nag-away lang kayo, nagkatampuhan. Hindi, inagaw yung boyfriend mo. Okay.
Imagine mo yan. And then, of course, the normal reaction is parang, you want to what?
Be angry at this
Angry
person.
and retaliate, diba?
Yes.
But then God reminds you to be kind to your friend, to extend grace. You can never do that apart from knowing the love of God. In a husband and wife relationship, how can you love your husband the way Jesus wants you to love your husband? sometimes they're nakakainis talaga.
Oh,
Because
yes.
there are decisions they
Oh,
make.
yes ko. Parang feel na feel ko. 5 years pa lang naman ako married. Okay,
Diba?
yes.
There
Yeah.
are things that there are decisions that you don't agree with. And then God tells you to submit. Hello.
Oh, that's my strong suit. You can ask my husband one show. Just
Diba?
kidding.
I mean, in
Yeah.
reality, if you are a very independent woman,
Mhm.
by the way, Joyce, I married really late. So
Tell us
imagine,
about the love story.
imagine, I married late. I was a sales and marketing director of a hotel chain.
Mhm.
And what do you call this? Like I handle a team. And then you get married. And then the Bible says, you submit to your husband. Huh? And there are decisions that he would say, no, let's not do that. But you have to submit and
Mhm.
zip your mouth. You can never do that apart from the love of God.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, God will say, this is my command. You submit to your husband. You do it for me. Why? Because I love you and I know what is best for you.
Mm.
So that's the only way. And I think that's the only way for a marriage to really work
Yeah.
for me.
And
Uh,
I so understand and relate to what you're saying because I'm exactly the same. I married pretty early. I was
yeah.
26, but then I started working when I was 18. And
Yes, yes.
I'm the kind of person that built things for myself.
Yes.
And so I always came into situations being the type A kind of personality. I plan things, I do things. Everything is my way or the
Mm.
highway until I became a Christian. And then God started, I would say, not naman breaking, pero yes, kind of
Yeah, breaking,
breaking.
yeah.
Breaking talaga parts of me that just wasn't pleasing to Him. And in hindsight now, I saw not only were they not pleasing, but they were not loving.
Yeah.
They were not Christ-like. And to what you were saying, it's really impossible for me
Impossible.
just looking at my situation, if you look at who I am, my
Yeah.
personality type, the kind of things I went through, the kind of history that I have, it's impossible for me to be the kind of person that I am today. But only by the grace of God, I'm able to be more
Amen.
gentle and patient
Yeah.
and kind and submissive and loving to my husband, caring for my children, only because of the grace of God. But I wanted to talk a little bit about siguro the contrast of how love is defined in the culture today and
Oh.
how love is defined in the Bible. So going back to this passage, Miss Binky, ano ba yung nakikita mong difference ng love sa popular culture ngayon, pero yung love na tinuturo sa atin sa Bible? How can we differentiate that?
Siguro I'll give the example na, as I mentioned, I married late, diba?
Mhm.
And when you get married late, the first thing that comes to your mind is there's something wrong with you. And that's what the society dictates. Parang, ha? Wala kang asawa? You're almost 40 and you're still single?
Mm.
Yes, may hope pa. Ibang topic yan. Pero yon, 'di
Kung
ba?
sino ka man, para sa ito.
'Di ba?
Mhm.
So when you think about it, that is what the society dictates. Na parang there's something wrong with you. Or the other side of it naman, parang ano ngayon if I'm not married? I can live on my own. I am secured.
Mm.
I can do things. I'm strong. I'm intelligent. I'm beautiful. But at the end of the day, you know that you're not.
Mm.
When you're single and you're older, you think there's something wrong with you and you feel so insecure. How can you give love to others when you're so focused on yourself? On the other end naman na parang you're successful, you're beautiful.
Confident, yeah.
You also know that one day you'll get old.
Yeah.
Tatanda ka. And then you'll have wrinkles. And then you'll be mas mahina ka na, you can't do things. And there are decisions that you will make and you will make mistakes. So
Mhm.
paano if you don't have an anchor, you don't have someone you know that loves you for who you are?
Mm.
Mahirap yon. And
Yeah.
you'll be so scared to live in this world because you will always want to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Diba? So going back, you really need to know the God of the Bible. You need to know Jesus and what He has done for you. Why?
Mm.
Because nobody can love us the way Jesus loves us.
Mm.
Wala.
Yeah.
Siya lang talaga. And if you experience His love, there's nothing you can do. He is your only audience. So
Mm.
you want to be your best because because somebody loves you and died for you. You want to do good because somebody was good to you. You want to love people because somebody loved you for who you are. Di ba?
Yeah.
So it's
And
important talaga.
to what you were saying, it's an unending and an overflowing source of love that we
Yes.
often try to look for in a
In
relationship, in a
relationship.
career, or in
Yes,
ourselves,
yes.
convincing ourselves that I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough,
Yes.
and yet still going short and thinking, okay, there's nowhere else that I can draw from. But yun nga, having that relationship with Christ talaga is having an overflowing source of love that we are able then to experience in ourselves with
Yeah.
our individual journeys and also overflow to others, right?
You can never do things apart from what God wants to happen. Diba? He
That's
still
true.
overrules everything. Even
Mhm.
if you say things that, okay, okay, I want this to happen and I will make way. But if God says, no, that is not my plan for you, wali.
Wala talaga. Wala tayong magagawa doon. But it's really encouraging, I feel like, for a lot of people who do have a desire to get
Mm-mm.
married. Diba? Your love story.
Nako, there's
In
hope.
God's perfect time. There is hope, you keep saying.
Yes.
It's such an encouragement for a lot of people. And what you're talking about earlier is the difference of love as defined in the Bible compared to
Mm-mm.
as defined in our culture is that it could really be counterintuitive,
Mm.
countercultural,
Yeah.
even sometimes, more often than not. And it could also be, I guess, parang a model for a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? And so I want to talk about now a Christ centered marriage. How does that. Should we call in?
Uh,
Should we call in the husband? Pero I want to talk about how a Christ centered marriage, how does that affect our communities, right?
yeah.
The people that surround us. How can it be a, I guess, an opportunity to share the gospel?
You know, Joyce, I mentioned kanina that I married late. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not the normal time to get married. If I talk to people, they'll say, ha, especially that my brother, who's 13 years younger than me, married ahead of
Huh?
me.
He's
Imagine,
younger
yeah,
than
no
you?
respect, huh? No, just
Grabe.
kidding.
I thought you were younger than
Oh yeah, he's my
him.
kuya, by the way.
Yes, Kuya
So
Marty.
when he got married, imagine the pressure,
Mm.
the insecurity, and people would say, okay ka lang, Binky? Okay ka lang? Ano naman? Okay naman yung...
Classic Pinoy.
Yeah, diba? So ano na? And for them, getting married to a lot of Pinoy, I think for Pinoys, getting married is the ultimate.
Mm.
Diba? Parang it's the ultimate dream of every woman. Parang
We're
ganun pa.
hopeless romantics din naman kasi
Oo.
talaga, to be honest, sa mga
Totoo.
Pinoy, diba?
So, you know what really helped me in my marriage? Especially, I met my husband in a parang late stage na, like 40s.
Yeah.
You know what helped me talaga? Discipleship.
Mm.
Mm-mm. To be discipled by someone. Because in discipleship, I learned that you need to submit. And 'di ba, when you're in a discipleship relationship with a friend, you will listen to that person.
Mhm.
You will trust that God used her to say the truth and love to you. So it has helped me, and I was under my discipler for almost 25 years. Yes.
Wow. What?
Yes.
Shout out. Sino
Shout out, Tita Sasa Felipe.
I love that.
Yeah, so she has seen me when I was still single, at the height of my career, at the lowest point in my career,
Mm.
and then when I was dating,
Mhm.
a lot, oh, a lot,
Shout out.
and even our pastor, set me up with someone, yung
Mm.
ganyan. And then, but discipleship helped me because it has reminded me that I need to learn to submit.
Mhm.
Even to my discipler, when
Yeah.
she would counsel me, kahit ayaw ko mag-obey, and then I have to. And I trust that her advice to me is right. And, siguro 98% she was correct. So that helped me in being into a marriage at a later stage because I was so independent. Then now I'm going to submit to someone.
Mhm.
Diba? So it has helped me in my marriage, yung discipleship. And um, I think a lot of people will look to you in the society, especially if you have friends who still don't have a relationship with the Lord,
Mhm.
and they will realize na it's possible pala that a marriage will work if you're both surrendered in the Lord and if it's God is in the center.
Yeah.
And there are decisions talaga. I think that's the most challenging. Eh. There are decisions na you need to make as husband and wife. But the last say talaga is the husband. And if he says, so this is what we're going to, you can appeal, but at the end, he's still, you know. And then when we tell our stories to our friends, so it also ministers to them.
Yeah.
Kasi especially now, I think the enemy is really attacking the families.
Yes.
As in, I hear stories of like breaking up, matagal na, they're married for a long time, and then they just decide to separate.
Yeah. You know, I think it's a natural occurrence that the enemy is trying to break up marriages because it's the first discipleship
Yes.
of the Christian community.
Yeah.
Diba? The husband disciples
The
his wife.
yeah.
And the wife will,
Disciple the
cherish and
children.
disciple the children. So does the husband. Pero once you break that, I guess, atomic nuclear family,
Yeah.
it's easier to break down the entire community of Christians, right? And so being in a Christ-centered marriage, a healthy Christ-centered marriage where God is the center, where you submit to your husband, where you fulfill the rules that God has put in the Bible, it really is an image of what the gospel truly is. It's really
Yeah.
submission to Christ, 'di ba? Na tayo yung tayo yung bride, si Christ yung bridegroom, and that's really the submission that we're looking for. And I think once people see that the communities that we're surrounded with, whether you got married late or got married early, to be faithful in your marriage in that way is not only a submission to your husband, but is a submission to Christ.
Yes.
You know?
And it's also um, an avenue where you practice commitment, and commitment is very important to the Lord.
Yeah.
You know why? Because see, God was so committed to us that He sent His own Son to
Mhm.
die for us. That's how committed He is, and marriage is like an overview of that. It's a practice. Now, you don't just give up on marriage, diba? You stay together, even if there are problems. You find ways to solve your problem in the Lord,
Yeah.
diba? And it also, I think it has a lot to do with humility also. It's an exercise of humility, diba?
Yeah, I didn't know that I was an impatient and prideful person until I got
Yeah,
married.
ako din.
I was constantly being reminded that I could be more patient and humble.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's really that, and it's a long and arduous process that, of course, both you and I can say na
Yeah.
bago pa lang po kami po
Ah,
mga
ah. Oo,
newlyweds.
hindi pa kami 20 years na kasal.
Hindi pa 20 years nakasal, but it really is true. It's that kind of love and commitment to
Yeah.
each other that really magnifies also our commitment to the Lord. And I would say lastly, we live now in a culture where emotion, happiness, your own contentment
Yes.
is the end all be all of things,
Oo,
which is the
totoo.
reason why a lot of people end up doing or making certain decisions that might not be God glorifying.
Yes.
But marriage really calls us to that. It's not about being constantly happy. It's really
Yeah.
about fulfilling that commitment that you've made to each other and to the Lord, which by God's grace, we hope we're able to fulfill
Yes,
until
and
the day
it's
that
only
He
by
calls us
God's
home.
grace talaga,
Yeah,
no,
that's
Joyce?
true. Miss Binks, now, apart from, relationships and marriage and romantic relationships, ngayon, ang usong-uso naman is self-love. What is the biblical way to look at self-love? Is there a biblical way to look at it or to actually understand it from a Christian perspective? Is there a way that we could transform that and really change that into not a selfish kind of love?
Yes, when we look at the verse, and I think it's in Psalms that I am wonderfully and beautifully made, that we have to remind ourselves that we are created in the image of God. And the one who created us love us so much. We are well thought of,
Mhm.
meaning inisip niya na yan. When he was creating us, si Binky, I'll make you look like this. I'll give you like this in the future. You will wait for a long time. You will get hurt in ganyan. So there was somebody who really created us with so much love. And when you know that that's the only way for you to also be able to give love. You want to be your best because of that someone who loves you so much. And that someone is not basta-basta someone. That someone controls the whole world, created everything, and can give you everything also. Then it's the best way to live your life.
I always say
Diba?
this on the podcast, this quote, I think it's by St. Augustine that says, "Our hearts are restless until it finds its rest in
Yes.
you." And I honestly feel like yung selfish kind of self love is really rooted in that. It's
Yeah,
rooted in
that's
our
true.
constant longing for finding purpose and meaning and affirmation in the world because we want to be able to fill that hole, fill
Yeah.
that gap because our hearts are so restless. Now, if we think about what you're saying, diba? Yung biblical way of looking at self-love is really more of recognizing that you are not enough. And that's a
Yes.
good thing.
Yeah, because you're not.
You're not enough. And that's a good thing because there is a God. There
Who,
is the God who created you,
yeah.
that you are beautifully and wonderfully
Definitely me.
made, so that, and that He has called you for a bigger purpose
Yes.
than just to constantly bring these things up out of yourself, trying to get affirmation from others. One of the things that I really had to wrestle with God is that feeling of resentment. And I realized that it was my responsibility to do other things that would keep me from feeling that way. So I
Yeah.
started running. And when I started running, I did half marathons na. So 6 months pa lang ako
Galing ah.
tumatakbo. And I realized that my big why is not because I want to feel better about myself or I want to feel good or remove the resentment. My big why is because I want to be intentional about how good a steward I am of the body that God has given me. I
Okay.
want to be intentional about the family that I have, be a good steward of the blessings that God has given me. So yung self-love na yun, na sinasabi ng mga tao na, oh, tumatakbo ka dahil sa self-love, yes and no, in the sense na yes, this is my own volition. I am running out of my own decision to run and to be better in taking care of my body and of my family and everything. But it is also a decision of a higher purpose, which
Mm-mm.
is to really be intentional about how I am taking care of the body that God has given me, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's one of the ways that we could go about it. Um, but going back to, I guess, demonstrating love, right, in our own families, in our own relationships, not just in self-love. Why is it so important to demonstrate God's love through actions naman? Not just through words as much as when we're sharing the gospel to others.
Because actions is more important. I mean, you
Mm.
can remember in the verse in First Corinthians, you can speak the tongues of man, but do not love. Meaning, you can memorize the whole Bible. Yun na lang. You
Yeah.
can memorize the whole Bible. You can be a great speaker. You can be you can explain uh the Bible talagang point, but do not love, people will not see Jesus in you.
Mhm.
So baliktad, you act first and then you say it next. So they should see kindness in you. They should see patience. They should see your smile is one. How you talk to people. I remember I was talking to someone. Um he serves the Lord, and then he's a good theologian, and then I know that he can explain the Bible, but he was talking to someone and I overheard it na parang he was giving counsel. Yung counsel naman, parang the person that he's talking to was not yet finished, and then he gave counsel na, and then after that I told him, alam mo, you should have waited for the other person to finish. Why? Because the other person should feel loved first before he will listen to your counsel. I mean, you can give
Mm.
the best counsel, but if you don't show real care, real concern, ay kahit pa pang summa cum laude yung counseling mo, he will not listen because he didn't feel the real concern, the real love. Look at Jesus, how he lived his life. He would spend time with people. He would talk to them, walk with them, laugh with them. He ate with them. And then he will tell them about truth, about God, and about himself. And they will listen to him. Why? Because he showed love first before anything else. Diba?
I love that. There's a quote that goes, people will forget about what you say, but they will never forget how you make them feel.
Yes. And you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving also. Diba?
I love that. Miss Binks, how have you experienced God's love in your life, and how has it changed the way that you share the gospel to others?
Nako, the love of Jesus changed everything in my life. Actually, maiiyak ako. Siguro next, but you know what we talked about kanina. And when people ask me, bakit hindi ka nagtatampo kay God? Why He allowed things to happen in your life? Diba, Joyce? And you know, when they ask, sabi, hindi ka ba nagtatampo kay God? Sabi ko, no. No, because He has given me what I really need. And it is not marrying at a young age. It is not even having kids. It is not healing. It is not the good things in life. He gave me the one thing that I need, and that is my relationship with Him. He loved me so much that I will never deserve heaven. And yet, He loved me so much that I'm going there. Diba? I will never deserve heaven, but He made a way for me to go there. So, that's my everything. And when I talk to people, I tell them a short phrase. I just tell them, you know, how I live my life now with all the challenges is simple. I live it for the one who loves me the most. I want to get to know Him more every day. I'm not perfect. I still struggle with a lot of things. But that's part of it. When you don't struggle, then it's ano ka, robot? There's no real relationship because you struggle. You still have that parang worldly desires, diba? But you want to obey the one who gave His all for you. So, yeah, it's my everything.
Thank you, Miss Binky, for sharing that. You know, it's a good reminder because I feel like a lot of us, especially those who are, you know, walking with the Lord also, we always ask that question, bakit may struggle pa rin? Bakit
trial.
may trials pa rin? Bakit mahirap pa rin? And that's true, you know. That will continuously happen on this side of glory. But I loved what you said earlier. I think it was, we were not yet recording, but you said, I will just get to know the one who holds all my tomorrows.
Yes.
You may not know what tomorrow brings, but I know the one who holds my tomorrow. And that gives me so much hope. You know, the only way that we can truly be hopeful, the only way that we can truly be peaceful, purposeful, and loving is if we know the one who holds all things, knows all things, created all things, who loves us the most, and who holds the tomorrow that we are so desperately anxious for.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for all of the stories. I feel like we could go on for 3 hours more, but unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for this episode of the podcast. Hopefully, we can have you back on the episode again soon. I-add ko na sa speed dial ko talaga si Miss Binky. Kailangan ko ng ganitong level of peace in Christ in our lives. So we hope...
Ate ang tawag.
Yes, ate. Si Tito Marty na lang yung tatawagin na. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Joy.
Yay. And thank you for watching. We hope that you are also experiencing God's love personally. And please do let us know how that changed the way that you share the gospel with others. Please do message us at YesHeIsPH. And we'll see you again on the next episode of Adulting with Joyce Pring. Bye! That's it for this episode of Adulting with Joyce Pring. If you liked this podcast, please don't forget to use the hashtag Adulting with Joyce Pring and also check out www.joycepring.com for the show notes and tag me on social media with you know it at Joyce Pring. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Paalam!